I never thought my son's wedding day, the day I'd waited for his whole life, would turn into a moment of pure shock. The music was soft, the guests were smiling, and my son, Daniel, stood at the altar with that glow only a man in love can have. I sat there feeling proud, thinking, I did a good job raising that boy. But just a few minutes after they exchanged vows, everything changed. During the reception, while everyone was laughing and taking pictures, Daniel's new wife, Emily, walked up to me. She leaned close, smiling sweetly for the crowd, but her words were like poison. "Old man, you're going to buy us a house or I'm leaving him. Got it?" For a moment, I thought I misheard. Her voice was calm, almost playful, but her eyes, those eyes, were cold. I didn't respond. I just nodded slowly, pretending to smile back, my heart pounding in disbelief. I'd never imagined my son's bride would be the kind of person who saw marriage as a transaction. But I stayed silent because I had a plan. I've always believed that true character reveals itself when you least expect it, and Emily had just shown me hers. I walked away quietly, took a deep breath, and waited for the right moment. Later that evening, when it was time for the speeches, Daniel gave a heartfelt toast. He thanked everyone, thanked Emily, and then turned to me. "Dad," he said, smiling, "you've been my rock. I hope I can be half the man you are." The crowd clapped, and I felt my throat tighten. Then it was my turn. I took the microphone, smiling at my son first. "Daniel," I said, "I'm proud of you. You've grown into a man who values love, loyalty, and respect. You remind me of your mother, pure-hearted and honest." Then I turned toward Emily, still smiling. "And Emily," I said gently, "I have to say, you've made quite an impression on me today." Her smile froze. The room went quiet. "You see, Emily told me earlier that unless I buy them a house, she'll leave my son." I wasn't sure how to respond, so I decided to respond here, in front of everyone. The silence was deafening. Emily's face went pale, Daniel's eyes widened. I could see him turning to her, confusion mixing with disbelief. "I've worked my entire life for my family, and I've learned one thing. Love built on money will crumble the moment the money runs out. Daniel, my boy, you deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not for what your father owns." Emily tried to interrupt. "That's not what But I raised a hand. "Emily, my dear, I don't judge you. We all make mistakes, but you should know. I already knew about your conversation with your ex-boyfriend last week, the one where you told him this marriage was your big break." Gasps filled the room. Daniel's face turned red, and Emily looked ready to faint. I had kept that information to myself, thinking I'd never need it, but her greed gave me no choice. I looked at my son and said softly, "Son, true love doesn't whisper demands in your father's ear. It whispers loyalty into your heart." Then I handed him the microphone and walked off the stage. The crowd was dead silent for a few seconds before whispers spread like wildfire. Emily tried to chase after me, stammering something about misunderstanding, but Daniel just stood there, heartbroken, frozen. I walked out of the hall that night with my head high, but my heart heavy. I hadn't wanted to ruin his wedding, but I couldn't let him start a life built on lies. What happened next, though, was something I didn't expect at all. As I stepped out of the wedding hall, the muffled sound of the crowd faded behind me. The night air hit my face, cool, still, heavy. I could hear the faint echo of gasps and whispers inside, but I didn't turn back. I thought I'd done the right thing, but deep inside, a father's heart never feels peace after seeing his child in pain. A few minutes later, Daniel came running out. His face was pale, eyes wide, tie loose. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling, "is it true? Did she really say that to you?" I sighed, looking at him. "I wish I could tell you I made it up, son, but I didn't. She did, right before the reception." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I thought she loved me, Dad. I thought—" I put a hand on his shoulder. "Love doesn't come with a price tag, Daniel. You can't buy it, and you can't negotiate it." He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I need to talk to her." And before I could stop him, he went back inside. I stood in the parking lot watching through the glass doors as he confronted Emily. Even from afar I could see the chaos, the tears, the raised voices, the desperate gestures. Guests were pretending not to stare, but everyone was watching. I didn't want to humiliate her. I only wanted the truth to come out before my son's life was ruined by lies. But as I soon learned, Emily wasn't the type to give up easily. Later that night, around midnight, I got a call. It was Daniel. His voice was shaky. "Dad, she left." "Left?" I asked. "She packed her things from the hotel and left with her friend. No note, no message, just gone." For a moment I felt both relief and sadness. Relief that he was free from manipulation. Sadness that his first experience of love had turned into a public disaster. A few days later, the incident went viral among family and friends. Everyone had their version of what happened. Some thought I'd been too harsh. Others said I saved my son's future. But Daniel didn't speak much. He stayed in his apartment, quiet, barely eating. As a father, watching your grown child crumble silently, it's a pain no one talks about. After a week, I decided to visit him. When he opened the door, I could see he hadn't slept. His eyes were red, and his once confident posture was gone. "Dad," he said quietly, "maybe I pushed her away. Maybe I made her feel like money was the only thing I could give." I sat down beside him. "No, son, don't twist this. You didn't make her greedy. You just didn't see her for who she really was." He nodded, but didn't reply. Then he handed me his phone. He said, "She texted me." The message read, "Tell your father he ruined everything. I was only testing him. He failed." I exhaled slowly. Testing me? No, she wasn't testing me. She was testing how far she could push. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal, though Daniel wasn't the same. He threw himself into work, avoiding social events, avoiding love altogether. I stayed patient. Time heals. But one afternoon, out of nowhere, fate decided to give us both a twist neither of us saw coming. A letter arrived in my mailbox, addressed to me in elegant handwriting. No return address. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. "I never meant it to go that far. I just wanted security. I'm sorry." It was signed Emily. I stared at it for a long time, unsure what to feel. Guilt? Pity? Anger? Maybe all three. I tore the check in half. Money couldn't erase what she'd done, nor what she'd taken from my son, his innocence, his trust. But fate wasn't done yet. A month later, I received a call from Daniel again. "Dad," he said, his voice calm but distant, "Emily wants to meet." I paused. "Why?" "She says she wants to explain herself. She wants closure." "Are you going?" He sighed. "Yeah, I need answers, Dad. I can't carry this forever." I didn't stop him. Some lessons can't be taught. They have to be lived. That evening, Daniel met Emily at a quiet cafe downtown. I didn't go, but he told me everything later. She cried, she apologized, said she'd grown up poor, that her whole life she'd been terrified of ending up with nothing. Her demand for a house wasn't about greed, it was about fear. Fear of being powerless again. She said she loved Daniel, but she didn't know how to separate love from survival. When Daniel told me all that, I didn't know what to say. I told him, sometimes love and fear walk hand in hand, but only one can lead the way. If fear leads,
Love dies." He nodded quietly. He said, "I forgave her, but I can't go back." And that's when I realized something deeper. My son had grown. He wasn't the same boy I'd raised. He'd become a man who understood not just love, but truth and dignity. That night, for the first time in weeks, we had dinner together. We laughed a little, talked about old memories. The air felt lighter again. But even as I went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't over yet. Because sometimes when you expose someone's truth, they don't just vanish. They come back with their own version of revenge. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I woke up to find my name trending online, with a headline that made my blood run cold.
2 weeks after that night, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Messages, pings, notifications, hundreds of them. I frowned, grabbed my glasses, and unlocked the screen. The first thing I saw was my own face on social media, with a headline that made my blood run cold. "Greedy father ruins son's wedding over money." Underneath were photos from the wedding, clips of my speech, twisted, edited to make me look like a manipulative old man trying to control my son's life. Someone had taken everything out of context, and I didn't need to guess who had done it. It had Emily written all over it. She was back, and this time, she wasn't whispering in my ear. She was shouting to the entire world. I felt my stomach sink. I opened the comments section. People were furious, calling me every name you can imagine. He humiliated her in public. That poor girl. He's jealous of his son's happiness? It was a nightmare. I called Daniel immediately, but he didn't answer. I called again. Finally, on the third try, he picked up. His voice was quiet, tired. "Dad, I saw it." "You believe me, right?" I asked. He sighed. "Of course I do. But Dad, this is bad. She's gone viral. Everyone at work has seen it." For the first time in years, I didn't know what to do. I'd always been the calm, logical father, the man who fixed problems. Not this time. This time, I was the problem. The internet had judged me guilty before I could say a word. I met Daniel later that evening at a small diner near the edge of town. He looked worn down, dark circles, unshaven, eyes full of worry. "She sent that video to the press, and she's claiming you emotionally abused her. That's insane. You know what really happened." He nodded. "I know, but the world doesn't. And now she's saying you refused to give her what she deserved after the wedding." I felt my blood boil. "Deserved? She blackmailed me." Daniel rubbed his face. "Dad, she's not just after revenge. She's after sympathy and money. She started a fundraiser online. People are donating." That hit me like a punch. She was making money out of lies. My own son's pain, my reputation, her profit. The next morning, I got a knock at my door. A reporter, a camera crew waiting on the sidewalk. "Mr. Anderson, we'd like to ask about your son's wedding incident," the man said politely, but with that greedy glint in his eye. I closed the door silently. They didn't stop. The story spread like wildfire. TV shows, blogs, YouTube commentaries, they all painted me as the villain. But Daniel stayed by my side. He refused to speak publicly, which made me proud. However, he did start digging into something, quietly, patiently. He started checking bank records, emails, anything he could find. And then one night, he called me, voice trembling but excited. "Dad, I found something. She's not just lying, she's scamming people. She's done this before." He sent me screenshots, different names, same story pattern. She dated older men, claimed victimhood, collected sympathy money, then disappeared. She was good at it. This time, she just aimed higher. Our family. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. "We need to show this to someone official." "No," Daniel replied. "We need to show the truth publicly, like she did to you." For a moment I hesitated. I wasn't the kind of man who liked revenge. But this wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. A few days later, we prepared everything. Daniel compiled evidence, emails, photos, voice messages of her bragging about manipulating people. We contacted one trusted journalist, a friend of mine from years back, and when the article dropped, it exploded. The truth about Emily revealed. Serial scammer exposed. It spread faster than her fake video did. People began deleting their angry comments. Others started apologizing publicly. Her fundraiser shut down within hours. And Emily, well, she vanished. Her social media gone, phone disconnected, accounts frozen. It was over. Or at least I thought it was. Daniel slowly began to heal again. We spent weekends fishing, talking about life, learning to laugh again. But one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to me and said, "Dad, I got a letter." My heart skipped. "From her?" He nodded. He pulled it out of his pocket. It was short, handwritten again. "You may have won the story, but you'll never understand why I did what I did. I'll always be the scar in your perfect life." No threats, no apology. Just that. It was eerie, like she wanted to remind us she still had control somehow. I burned the letter that night, watched the paper curl into ash under the fading light, and as the flames died, I told Daniel quietly, "Some people don't disappear because you expose them. They disappear because the truth finally made them face themselves." He nodded silently, eyes fixed on the ashes drifting away into the cool night sky. I thought it was the end, but as I learned later, when you drag darkness into the light, it sometimes finds a new shadow to hide behind. And Emily's shadow wasn't done haunting us yet.
Months passed after Emily vanished from the public eye. The chaos slowly faded like smoke after a storm. Daniel found peace again. At least that's what I thought. He changed jobs, moved into a quieter neighborhood, and even started going to therapy to deal with everything that happened. I watched him rebuild piece by piece, like a man learning to walk again after being hit by a truck. And me, I tried to move on too. But life has a strange way of whispering when you least expect it. One evening, as I was locking up my office, a familiar sound made me freeze. It was a laugh, not loud, but soft, deliberate. The kind of laugh you remember, even if you wish you could forget. I turned around. The parking lot was empty, except a single envelope resting on the hood of my car. My name on it, in that same elegant handwriting. I didn't open it there. I waited until I got home. My hands were shaking as I tore it open. Inside was a single photo, a picture of Daniel at his new office desk, and beneath it, a note that said, "Nice place. He looks happy. I wonder how long that will last." My blood ran cold. She was watching him. She knew where he worked. I called Daniel immediately. "Son, listen to me carefully. Don't panic, but I think Emily is back." There was silence on the other end. Then he said, "Dad, she's been sending me emails too. Anonymous accounts, same tone, same handwriting, scanned into images." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, heart pounding. "Because I thought I was imagining it," he said quietly. "But now, I know it's real." We went to the police. They filed a report, but without direct threats, there wasn't much they could do. It was harassment, yes, but subtle, clever, measured. Like she wanted to haunt us, not hurt us. She was too smart for open threats. Over the next weeks, the letters kept coming. One left on my porch, another slid under Daniel's office door. One morning he found a photo of himself buying groceries with the words, "Still pretending you're innocent," written in red ink. That was the moment he broke. "Dad, I can't live like this anymore. I can't look over my shoulder every day." I wanted to protect him, but I was just as lost. So I decided to take matters into my own hands.
I hired a private investigator, a former cop named Harris, tough, quiet, and methodical. Within a week, he traced the letters back to a small town 3 hours away. And there she was. Emily, living under a different name, working at a small antique shop. Harris gave me the address. I should have called the police, but instead, I drove there myself. The town was small, peaceful, a place where people knew each other's names, the kind of place where you'd never suspect someone could destroy lives. I parked across the street and watched her through the window. She looked different. Her hair shorter, her posture heavier, like she'd aged 10 years and 6 months. She was helping an old lady pick out jewelry, smiling politely. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. But then she looked up straight at me. It was like she'd known I was there all along. Our eyes locked. She smiled. That same cold smile from my son's wedding day. I started the car and drove away fast. I told myself it was over, that she couldn't touch us anymore. But the next morning, Daniel called me again, panicked. "Dad, my boss just got an anonymous email with fake screenshots of me taking money from the company's account." My heart dropped. "What?" "They suspended me until they investigate," he said, voice cracking. "Dad, she's trying to destroy my life again." It was Emily's revenge, reborn. Only smarter this time. She wasn't chasing sympathy anymore. She was chasing ruin. I met Daniel that night at his apartment. He looked broken again, just like after the wedding. "We can fight this," I said. "We have proof." He shook his head. "No one cares about proof, Dad. They care about what's viral, what looks real." He was right. The internet doesn't wait for truth. It hunts for drama. And Emily knew exactly how to feed it. But this time, I wasn't going to let her win. I called Harris again. "Find me everything," I said. Her fake accounts, her aliases, all her traces. It took him 2 weeks, but what he found was more than I expected. She'd created an entire network of fake profiles, posing as coworkers, friends, even journalists, all to spread rumors about Daniel. It wasn't just revenge. It was obsession. I sat there, staring at the evidence, and something inside me snapped. I realized Emily wasn't doing this because she hated us. She was doing it because she couldn't stand that we had moved on without her. She wanted control back. But I was done being her puppet. I contacted my old friend again, the journalist who had exposed her before. We gathered every shred of data, Harris's reports, every screenshot, and we built a story. One final story. The headline read, "From Victim to Predator, the Dark Return of Emily Gray." We sent it to every major outlet by morning. This time there was no saving her. People recognized the pattern. The evidence was overwhelming. Within days, the police reopened her previous fraud cases. She was arrested under her new identity for harassment, identity manipulation, and defamation. When I saw the headline, I didn't feel joy. I didn't even feel relief. I just felt tired. Tired, but free. Daniel got his job back a week later. He started smiling again, living again. As for me, I decided to move out of the city, closer to the coast, a quiet place where I could finally sleep without checking over my shoulder. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind rattles the windows, I still hear that laugh in the back of my mind. Not loud, not near, just there. A reminder that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they hide behind a smile. And that's when you learn that truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it only brings silence.
After Emily's arrest, things finally seemed calm again. The headlines faded. Daniel got his life back, and I I finally felt like maybe the storm had passed. But life has a strange sense of humor. It never really ends where you think it does. One afternoon, a few months later, I received a call from a detective handling Emily's case. "Mr. Anderson," he said, "we've found something you might want to see." I hesitated. "Something new?" "Yes, sir. We were going through her belongings, journals, old letters, hard drives. There's a lot." He paused as if choosing his words carefully. "You might not see her the same way after this." I agreed to meet him at the precinct. The evidence room smelled like dust and old paper. He handed me a small box. Inside were photos, letters, and one worn-out leather journal with Emily's handwriting on the cover. I opened it, and what I read left me speechless. Page after page was filled with chaos, confessions, plans, memories. She had written about me, about Daniel, about her fear of poverty. But then the entries shifted to something else, something darker. She wrote about growing up with a father who gambled everything, who hit her mother when money ran out, who told her, "Men only care about money. You better find someone rich, or you'll end up in the gutter like us." Her words were raw, painful, bleeding off the page. She wasn't just greedy. She was broken, shaped by fear, molded by pain. I closed the book slowly, feeling an unexpected ache in my chest. She wasn't just a villain, she was a victim too. A victim who had turned her pain into control, because control was the only safety she'd ever known. The detective spoke softly. "She's been asking for you. Mostly quiet in her cell, but she mentioned your name several times." I froze. "Me? Why?" "She said she needs to tell you something. She refused to speak to anyone else." For days, I thought about it. I didn't owe her anything, but deep down, a small voice kept whispering, "You can't move on until you know." So one morning, I drove to the county jail. She was thinner, paler, but her eyes, the same sharp eyes, still burned with that eerie alm. She smiled faintly as I sat down across from her. "You came," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not here for closure," I said. "Then why are you here?" I hesitated. "Maybe I just want to understand." She leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. "You think I ruined your son's life. You think I'm a monster, but I didn't start this story." "What do you mean?" "Your family did." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She smiled, slow and deliberate. "Ask your wife if she's still alive." My heart stopped. My wife had died years ago in a car accident. How could Emily even— "What does my wife have to do with this?" I asked sharply. She just leaned back, eyes glinting. "You really don't know, do you?" She stood as the guard signaled time was up, but before leaving, she turned and said, "Your wife and my mother used to work together. 30 years ago. She ruined her life. You just never knew it." And then she was gone. I sat there frozen, trying to process what she'd said. How could that be possible? My wife, Mary, was a schoolteacher, honest, kind, respected. How could she have ruined anyone's life? I drove home that night with 1,000 thoughts crashing in my head. I dug through old boxes in the attic, old letters, yearbooks, photos, and then I found it. A photograph. My wife standing beside another woman, smiling. The back had 2 names written in faded ink, Mary and Lisa. My heart sunk. The woman beside my wife. The face was younger, but familiar. It was Emily's mother. I sat down,
breath shaking. I'd never known Mary and Lisa had worked together. The next morning, I went to see an old friend of Mary's who'd worked at the same school back then. When I showed her the photo, she gasped, "Oh my God, that's Lisa Gray. She was fired after that scandal, remember?" I didn't. What scandal? Something about stolen school funds. Lisa took the blame, but rumor was it wasn't her fault. Someone else was involved. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Are you saying my wife? I'm not saying anything," she interrupted quickly. "But after that, Lisa disappeared with her daughter. People said she struggled for years." I left her house in silence. My world tilted. Everything I thought I knew about right and wrong began to blur. If my wife really had destroyed Emily's mother's life, then maybe Emily's revenge wasn't random. It was inherited, born from her mother's pain. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat staring at my wife's photo, remembering her laughter, her warmth, her kindness, and wondering, had she hidden something all along? Daniel noticed my silence over dinner. "Dad, you okay? You've been distant." I looked at him, hesitated, and then said softly, "Son, there's something we need to talk about. It's about your mother." He frowned. "What about Mom?" I took a deep breath. "I think she may have been part of something that hurt Emily's family." Daniel's fork clattered onto the plate. "What? Dad, that doesn't make sense. Mom wasn't—" "I know. I thought so too. But the evidence, the people, it's all connected." He shook his head in disbelief. "So you're saying Emily's been getting revenge for something that happened 30 years ago?" "Maybe not revenge," I said quietly. "Maybe justice, in her own twisted way." He stood up, pacing. "Dad, that's insane. She nearly destroyed us." "And maybe," I whispered, "she thinks we destroyed her first." The room fell silent. The clock ticked. The weight of generations hung in the air. I realized then that this wasn't just about greed or obsession. It was about legacy, about sins we never knew we inherited. And as much as I wanted to believe my wife had been innocent, a small part of me feared Emily might be right. Because the truth doesn't just set you free. Sometimes it drags you back into the past and forces you to face what your family left buried.
The next morning, I couldn't think of anything else. The photo of my wife and Lisa kept burning in my mind like a wound that wouldn't close. I drove back to the school where Mary used to teach. It looked smaller now, old bricks and ivy crawling up the sides. The secretary on duty was new, but she led me to the archives room where the old employment records were kept. I spent hours digging through dusty boxes until I found the year Mary and Lisa had worked together. There it was. Mary Anderson, teacher. Lisa Gray, administrative assistant. Termination reason? Misappropriation of school funds. My hands trembled as I traced the faded ink. Misappropriation. That's a word people use when they don't want to say theft. I sat there staring at the line wondering, was my wife framed? Or had she framed someone else? There was no way to ask her. She had been gone 10 years. But something deep inside whispered that Emily's mother might still be alive somewhere, and maybe she held the truth. So I drove 3 hours out of the city, to the same small town where Emily had been found months earlier. I didn't have an address, just a name and a hope. The antique shop was closed now, a for sale sign swinging in the wind. I asked around at the diner across the street. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, said softly, "Lisa Gray? She used to live out by the river, small cabin, alone mostly. After her daughter left, she stopped coming into town." I thanked her and drove toward the river. The road was narrow,
lined with trees, and the sun was dipping low when I finally saw it. A small wooden cabin, half hidden by weeds. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Then I heard a weak voice. "Come in." The door creaked open. A frail woman sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket. Her hair was silver, her eyes tired but sharp. She looked up at me and whispered, "You look like her husband." I froze. "You knew Mary?" "Knew her," she smiled faintly. "I once trusted her more than anyone." I sat down, heart pounding. "Lisa, I need to know the truth. What really happened at the school?" She was silent for a long time. Then she sighed. "I didn't steal the money," she said softly. "I found out Mary had taken it to pay off a family debt, something about her father's medical bills. She begged me to cover for her, said she'd fix it before the audit. But she never did. The principal found the missing funds in my account. She'd transferred it there, temporarily, she said. I was fired. She kept her job." My breath caught in my throat. "That can't be. Mary wasn't that kind of person." Lisa looked at me with sad eyes. "We all do things we regret when we're desperate. She cried when I lost everything, but she never told the truth." Tears welled in her eyes. "Emily was only a child. She watched me fall apart. She saw how the world treats the poor, how easy it is for the powerful to lie and walk away. I think that broke her." I sat there in silence, feeling the weight of decades crash over me. The guilt wasn't mine, but it belonged to my family. Lisa reached out a trembling hand and said, "She doesn't hate you, sir. She hates what you represent." Her words sank deep. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to apologize, but how do you apologize for something you didn't do, yet your family caused? Before I could speak, she handed me a small box. She left this behind before she disappeared. She said, "You'd come one day." Inside was an old locket. Mary's locket. I knew it instantly. The same one my wife wore every day until the day she died. I opened it. There was a photo. Mary on one side, and on the other, a tiny picture of baby Emily. I stared, shaking, unable to breathe. "She gave her daughter this?" "Mary did," Lisa whispered. "After the scandal, she visited once. Gave me the locket for Emily. Said she was sorry. Said someday she'd make it right. But she never came back." I closed the locket and looked at Lisa. "Does Emily know this?" "No," Lisa said quietly. "I never told her. She wouldn't have believed me. She only remembers the pain." I left that cabin that night with my soul heavy. I drove back through the rain, the road blurring through my tears. I kept thinking about Emily, how every cruel thing she did was rooted in a lie my wife had created, a lie that destroyed her mother's life and her childhood. At home, Daniel was waiting up for me. "Dad, you've been gone all day. Where were you?" he asked. I sat down slowly and handed him the locket. He looked confused. "This was Mom's. Where did you—" "It belonged to Emily's mother, too," I said quietly. "They were friends, once." He frowned, still not understanding. So I told him everything, every word. Lisa, the theft, the false blame, the locket. When I finished, Daniel sat in silence for a long time. Then he said softly, "So Emily wasn't just taking revenge, she was finishing what she thought her mother couldn't." I nodded. "It doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it." He rubbed his eyes. "What are we supposed to do now? Just forgive her?" "No," I said, "but maybe we stop hating her." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Lisa's fragile voice in my head, the way she said, "She doesn't hate you, sir. She hates what you represent." And for the first time, I didn't see Emily as a monster. I saw her as a reflection, of pain that started long before any of us could fix it. But deep inside, I also knew she wouldn't stay silent forever. Something told me this revelation, the truth, would reach her soon. And when it did, the story that had begun 30 years ago would come full circle. Because the past never dies. It only waits.
3 months later, the snow had begun to melt when the letter came. It was from the state correctional facility where Emily was serving her sentence. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The handwriting was careful, almost too neat. Mr. Anderson, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to know why your wife kept my mother's locket. I saw it in the news photo when the police took my things. I recognized it. I need the truth. There it was, the moment I'd been dreading. She had found out. I sat staring at the page for what felt like an hour before I finally began to write back. I told her everything. Not the polished version, the raw truth. I told her about Mary and Lisa, the debt, the theft, the betrayal. I told her that my wife had died with guilt in her heart, and that I didn't know any of it until recently. I ended the letter with one line. If you still want to hate someone, hate me, but at least now you'll know who you're really angry at. 2 weeks passed before I received a reply. It was short. Thank you. I don't hate you anymore, but I don't know how to stop being angry. I read those words over and over, then folded the letter and kept it in the same drawer as the locket. Every few days I'd write again, nothing dramatic, just small notes about life outside, the weather, the garden I'd started. I didn't expect a reply, but slowly she began writing back. Little by little her tone softened. She asked about Daniel, about the house. She mentioned that she was painting again, landscapes mostly. She said it helped her remember the cabin by the river where her mother used to sing to her. I didn't realize it then, but those letters were healing both of us. Then, one morning, a call came from the prison counselor. Mr. Anderson, he said, Emily Gray has been accepted into a rehabilitation program for early release. She listed you as her sponsor. Are you willing to take responsibility for her reintegration? I froze. The easy answer was no. She had destroyed so much. Yet my heart whispered yes. I told him I'd think about it. That night I sat on the porch watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. Daniel came out and sat beside me. It's about Emily, isn't it? He asked. I nodded. She might be getting out soon. They want me to sponsor her. He leaned back, thinking. Dad, she hurt us, but maybe she deserves one more chance. If Mom's actions started this mess, maybe we're the only ones who can end it. His words hit me hard. I'd spent so long carrying guilt for something I hadn't done, but maybe redemption wasn't about who caused the pain, it was about who stopped it. The next morning I called the counselor back and said, yes, I'll do it. When Emily walked out of the prison gates months later, she looked different. Not softer, not harder, just older. Her eyes still held that quiet fire, but there was something else there too. Uncertainty. She saw me waiting by the car and hesitated. You didn't have to come, she said quietly. Yes, I did, I answered. She looked away. So what now? You expect me to move in? Pretend everything's fine? I shook my head. No, pretend nothing, but start something. We drove in silence most of the way back. The radio played old country songs, the kind Mary used to hum while cooking. I caught Emily glancing at me a few times, as if trying to see the man behind the name she'd hated for years. When we got home, Daniel was there. He greeted her politely, offering his hand. She didn't take it, just nodded and walked past him into the garden. I didn't blame her. It would take time. She stood there staring at the small patch of flowers I'd planted in her mother's memory. There was a wooden sign that read, For Lisa and Mary, 2 women, 1 truth. She turned to me, eyes wet.
"You did this?" she asked. "For both of them," I said. She didn't reply, just knelt down and touched the petals as if they were something fragile she might break. That evening we sat by the fire, the first time all three of us under the same roof, without anger thick in the air. She said softly, "I used to dream about this house when I was little. I thought rich people never felt pain." I smiled sadly. "We do. We just hide it better." She stared into the flames. "I don't know how to live now. Everything I believed was built on a lie." "Then build something new," I said quietly. "Truth can be a foundation too." Weeks passed. She helped around the house, started painting again, and even began volunteering at a youth center. I could see the walls slowly breaking down. But sometimes I'd catch her standing by the window at night, looking at the road like she expected someone to come for her. One evening I asked, "You still think about your mother?" She nodded. "Every day, but I'm starting to remember her laugh, not just her crying." I felt something loosen inside me, a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. Then one morning, a letter arrived addressed to Emily. No return address. She opened it silently and froze. I saw her face go pale. "It's from her," she whispered. I frowned. "Who?" "Mary," she said. "Your wife." I blinked in disbelief. "That's impossible." Emily handed me the letter. The handwriting was unmistakably Mary's. My heart pounded as I read the first line. "If you're reading this, Emily, it means I never got to tell you the truth myself." I looked up at her. She was trembling. The letter continued describing events that hadn't been in any record, details only my wife could have known. And the last sentence chilled me to the bone. "There's more to your mother's story than even I understood, and it's buried where it all began, under the school." Emily looked at me, eyes wide. "We have to go there," she said. I hesitated. The school had been closed and demolished years ago, but maybe something remained, a secret buried in the rubble, something Mary wanted her to find. I didn't know what waited for us, but I knew one thing. The story wasn't over. Not yet.
The next morning, we left before dawn. The road to the old town was shrouded in mist, and for a long time neither of us spoke. The radio crackled softly with static as we drove past silent fields and broken fences. The school had been closed for nearly 20 years after a fire destroyed most of the main building. It was supposed to be cleared for new housing, but the project had been abandoned halfway through, leaving behind a skeleton of blackened walls and cracked pavement. When we arrived, Emily stood beside me, staring at the ruins. Her voice was barely a whisper. "This is where it all began." We walked through the wreckage, ash and twisted metal crunching beneath our shoes. The air smelled faintly of smoke, even after all those years. She led the way, as if she already knew where to go. The old teacher's wing had collapsed, but a few rooms still stood partially intact. One of them, according to the faded sign, was records storage. Mary's letter had said something was buried under the school, so we searched for any sign of a basement entrance. Near the corner of the building, half hidden under a pile of charred debris, Emily found a metal hatch. We pulled it open with effort. The air that rushed out was cold and stale, like a tomb. We shined our flashlights down the narrow stairs and descended carefully. At the bottom was a small archive room, its shelves still lined with soot-covered boxes. Most had melted or crumbled, but one metal cabinet in the corner remained sealed. I forced it open, and inside we found an envelope, yellowed with age, but perfectly preserved. On the front, in faded ink, were the initials M.A. Mary Anderson. My heart stopped. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were several documents, bank records, letters, old photographs, and then a confession. Mary had written it long before her death. She explained everything, how she and Lisa had discovered the school's headmaster embezzling funds, how he had threatened them when they confronted him, and how in desperation, Mary had moved the money temporarily into Lisa's account to protect it from being erased. But before she could expose him, he had destroyed the evidence and framed Lisa instead. When Mary tried to come forward later, he was already gone, vanished with the stolen funds. She had carried the guilt ever since, afraid to ruin Lisa's chance at rebuilding her life. She had written, "I failed both of you, Lisa and Emily, and the truth buried with me will haunt the innocent unless it's found. If you're reading this, forgive me." Emily sank to her knees, tears spilling down her face. She whispered, "All those years, I hated her for something she didn't even do." I knelt beside her. "She wanted you to find this, so you could finally stop carrying her pain." She clutched the papers to her chest, crying quietly. "She wasn't perfect, but she tried to protect us both." For a long moment, we sat there in the dim basement, the light from our flashlights cutting through dust and shadow. It felt like time had finally stopped chasing us. When we came back up, the sun had broken through the clouds for the first time in days. The ruins looked different now, not haunted, just quiet, like a place that had finally told its story. Emily took one last look around and said, "I want to rebuild this place, not as a school, but as a center for kids who've been through what I have." Her voice was steady, strong. I smiled. "Then that's what we'll do." Months later, the foundation stone was laid for the Anderson Gray Community Center. The town came alive again, neighbors volunteering, local news covering the project. Daniel handled the finances, Emily directed the art programs, and I worked in the garden every morning where the new memorial stood. 2 names engraved in brass, Mary Anderson and Lisa Gray. The truth set them free. On opening day, Emily gave a speech in front of the crowd. She spoke about forgiveness, about pain that travels through generations until someone chooses to stop it. She said, "For years I thought revenge would heal me, but only truth did. That's what this place is about, not forgetting the past, but transforming it." When she finished, the applause was long and heartfelt. I saw in her eyes the little girl she must have once been, innocent, hopeful, finally at peace. As the sun set behind the new building, I stood watching the crowd leave. One by one, the lights flickered on inside, warm, golden, alive. I felt Mary beside me somehow, her voice soft in the wind. "Thank you for finishing what I couldn't." I closed my eyes and whispered, "Rest now." Emily came and stood next to me. She smiled faintly. "You know, for the first time, I don't feel like I'm running from something." I nodded. "Because you're finally running towards something." She slipped her arm through mine, and for a moment, the years of pain melted away, replaced by quiet, earned peace. The past had taken so much from both of us, but now it had given something back too. Closure. And as the stars appeared one by one above the old town, I knew that the story which began with lies ended with truth. And maybe that's the best any of us can hope for.